Hello, my name is Bailey Burgess, and this is my presentation on special education interviews with that of a principal, a special education teacher, and a para. Looking at different child find procedures, the principal definitely stated that they try to catch them early, and there's different things that they do, but there's also a lot more that they could do. They generally look at SIT and the GEI process and obviously kindergarten readiness, but there's so much more things that they could do as they don't have a lot of screeners. In talking with the special education teacher, there was a lot more given, like things not necessarily just as kindergarten readiness, but KidLink, with there being no parent-teacher, parents as teachers, or pre-K, they have to rely on a lot of either doctor referrals in the early ages, or a lot of those SIT and students going through the GEI process and learning of those through those interventions, going through MTSS and Title, and then they are referred. She did also note that there were some screeners such as ASQ and HELP. The para stated that their involvement with those child find procedures are coming from observing behaviors as they're going through the process, and they can help in aiding with the special education teachers or counselors, regular education teachers, whoever's trying to get that information and that data. Looking at advice on supervision of special education staff, the principal said that definitely somebody has to be in charge and hold them accountable of when and where they're supposed to be. That oftentimes they are found that, sometimes pairs aren't where they're supposed to be, or maybe their break is a little longer. There has to be a system of checks and balances. And in essence, the special education teacher echoed some of those, but rather it being at the administration level, taking that to the teachers, and then having that control and creating those schedules. The para definitely echoed. This para was a little different and said that they definitely want support, give feedback, and check in with them regularly. Looking at the most challenging part of special education, the principal said that simply there's no training to understand what is going on. So there's a lot of assumptions that are made, and a lot of things come up after the fact, or after kind of catch yourself in hot water, because of, again, there's not a lot of training, and there's not as much collaboration as there maybe should be in looking at management of caseloads. And then sometimes there's that role of teachers versus principals, and teachers, whether they be regular education or special education, see it one way, and the principal might see it another because they may know a student differently, or cooperating teachers differently. The special education teacher said that lack of support from administration and the overall knowledge of what they do, sometimes they feel like they are just running in circles because they know what they're doing and they know what they need, and they would know what they need for their students, but they can't get that fully into their administration because of that lack of training. And a para stated the most frustrating thing is when working with students and getting frustrated with those students because they just are defiant. They don't want to, and trying everything they can in their power, and they only have so much power because as they're not the actual teacher, whether it be in that inclusion classroom or special education. On the flip side, one of the most rewarding things for each of these, the principal said, is the growth from the beginning to the end. This particular principal is a middle school principal, and he stated that seeing that growth from the 6th grade to the 8th grade is absolutely phenomenal. Of course, there's maturity, but just learning different things. The special education teacher said that the relationships and working with those students by far is the most rewarding thing and the coolest thing, because unlike some regular education teachers, they might have several kids in and out of their room all day, but a lot of times those special education teachers have the same set of students for a number of years, and they can really form a bond. And echoing what the principal said, a para said, seeing that the students succeed, seeing them get it and have those light bulb moments. In working with regular education teachers, the principal said that there's definitely a different mindset in between the principal and the regular education teachers and the special education teachers. And sometimes the principal's caught having to play the middleman between what the special education is saying that they want and they need for a student, and sometimes the regular education teacher is wanting to push. So following those accommodations, working with regular education to look at different interventions and adhering to those accommodations as well, and sort of that balance. The special education teacher said that inclusion and accommodations are two of the biggest struggles that they find in trying to, again, find that balance with regular education teachers and adhering to those as stated in their IEP. And Apera stated that classroom support, modifying assignments, they're really there as an extension of those special education classrooms and teachers so that they can help clarify anything, because they are right there. They might not be writing the IEPs or in the IEP meeting, but they know exactly what it means, and they're the right-hand man, not only for the special education teacher, but also that regular education teacher as well. In working with parents, the principal said communicate. It's one of the biggest things. And you also have to, in a sense, be transparent with that. And, saying this is what we see best for your child, and what do you see best for your child? And let's have that dialogue is one of the biggest pieces. The special education teacher said that, and echoing in that sense of communication, that honesty, don't mince words, put it all out there, because a lot of times some of the things that, as she stated, some of the things that you say, it's not going to be the worst thing they've ever heard, being the parent of a child who has a learning disability or special needs. And so you just have to put it out there and work with them. And Apera echoed again that communication piece, that you have to listen and be an extension of that head teacher and work with them as well, and relaying different information and communication. The advice given for a first-year administrator by a principal was to just get training and ask people, collaborate, network, because in a sense with special education, you almost don't know what you don't know. And the principal stated that scheduling that time and making time for yourself in your schedule, because you can get pulled so many different directions, that if you schedule that time and you network with other people, then you can really learn so much from others. And it's really a collaboration process. The special education teacher stated about not upgrading class systems, and that to really trust the special education staff, the process, and to not completely take charge in a sense of what you think it should be, but to really collaborate and work together. As Apera also said, to check in with those special education teachers and staff and build that positive relationships, because with some of those students, they're going to work really closely together as much as they can, whether it be academically or different behaviors with some of those students. And looking at the role of a special education teacher and a principal, the principal stated that a special education teacher is one who accommodates. They are working with that student, doing everything they can to help them succeed, to not let them fall through the cracks, to not let them fail. And looking at the principal's role, he stated that it's one that's difficult. You have to be available, and in this particular principal's noted that this is something that he himself needs to do better in, just being more aware and freeing up his time to be there to help through that process, and not just show up at an IEP meeting or give out discipline or with behaviors with some of those as well. The special education teacher stated that the teacher themselves is a little different in a sense. This particular special education teacher does not work in a district that is part of a co-op. So in essence, their boss that they see every day is the principal. Now that they do have a special education director, which is also a little bit different as well versus working in a cooperative, where she stated that before, when she was in a cooperative, they've told that as a cooperative, they're guests in that school. So they have to adhere to those things, but at the same time, they have to have that collaborative piece, which is what she stated was a significant part of that role of a principal. The Apera stated that the SPED teacher is doing a lot with scheduling, IEPs, data, looking at behaviors, and really analyzing as much as they can so they can plan as much as they can to kind of have those wraparound services for those students so that they can succeed as much as possible. And that principal is that kind of behind the scenes piece that they help mend those relationships, give discipline when needed on certain behaviors, and again, working in that collaboration in that they're doing more behind the scenes work. And looking at the characteristics of administrators, the principal stated that they have to be flexible, strong, supportive, demanding, a great listener, and they have to seek out good special education staff. As he stated before, that it is such a difficult role and that there's not a lot of training, he said you really have to reach out in that collaboration piece to seek out those individuals who know what they're doing and who can work well with others within the special education department, as well as those regular education teachers, to help train them and to inform them and teach them the different parts of special education. The special education teacher said definitely open to alternative thoughts on education and special education. Specifically, that it's not just the special education and they have their minutes and they have their pull-out time or they have their inclusion time, but what are different ways and fun ways that these students can learn and it can be effective and they can gain and grow, but at the same time they can feel like they're one of the regular education or their like-minded peers. And a para stated that administrators, they have to be in positive relationships. They have to model those and they have to promote those as well. And they have to give input with special education, but also have communication. Again, that collaboration piece and that communication piece. Overall, in talking with these 3 separate people and their different parts and playing with special education, communication and collaboration was huge. That it's such a big thing and there's so many different hands in the fire. And it's seemingly one of those, and there's so many laws and regulations that you all have to come together and have, whether it be weekly meetings or monthly meetings, professional learning communities to share with each other so that everybody can be on the same page, so that when you do have those wraparound services and those IEP meetings, that everybody's on the same page and they're just looking out for that student and what's best. One of the biggest things that I took away from this was reiterating that communication and collaboration piece, but also that there's so much to it and it can be seen with special education that it's seen so differently to each of these 3 different people, whether it's an administrator, the special education teacher, or the para, and they all work with a special education student in different capacities. And so that with those different viewpoints coming together and possibly having those professional learning communities or those weekly meetings or monthly meetings, and that constant communication of data is huge, huge, huge for each of those, as well as the student, and then being able to work as a team, a collaborative unit, to communicate out to the parents or the guardians and the families as well. Thank you for listening to my presentation.